You should get be your clock.
That was in front of me, but the other.
And we are live.
We got, oh, no, sorry. What's your writing? What's your writing? And no. Maybe. I didn't know if I need. Here. Hey, John. Have the writing materials. The art thing is, they're right there. They're where? Sure, it's, I saw this and wondered where it came from. Oh. Yeah. Oh my gosh, like a stash. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, you good? Good. All right, this one.
I figured, the white shirt eyes.
Yes. Or a banker. Minutes. You've been away. January 21st. Yes. Every year, just a week. It's heated. Okay. It's my brother. Yeah. God, he just.
Good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock. This is Tuesday, February 2024, and I'll call to order the City of Prospect, Kentucky City Council regular meeting. The first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. The minutes of the January 8th, 2024 City Council meeting have been distributed. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, any corrections or additions? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. We have no one signed up no citizens signed up to make comments, but if there's somebody who'd like to say something, this is your opportunity to speak up. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the mayor's report. So for my report, I'm going to make two brief announcements, and those announcements will be followed by my state of the city remarks. First, the claim for money damages brought by LDG against the city will be going to trial on September 17, 2024. The judge has set aside 10 days for the trial. While the city's insurer is providing legal counsel for the city, our insurer has taken the position that the city's insurance policy does not provide coverage for any money damages that may be awarded. I anticipate that I will call a special meeting in the coming weeks or months at which our council members will have the opportunity to talk with our lawyers in executive session. My second announcement is that a new statute will become effective in Kentucky in July of this year that should make it easier for cities to annex adjacent areas. I am forming a working group to explore the city's annexation opportunities. I've asked Don Gibson to chair that group, and I'm pleased to report that Don has agreed to do so. With that said, here's my State of the City message. These remarks will be published in the Prospect newsletter, a slightly edited version of these remarks. The state of our city is strong, and the future of Prospect is bright. 2024 marks Prospect's 50th birthday, our golden jubilee. A committee of Prospect citizens led by Terry Rankhorn is planning celebrations that will take place throughout the year. As we mark this milestone, I will continue to work with our council, police, staff, and volunteers to strengthen our sense of community and place. When I am asked what makes Prospect special, my reply is always the same. We have great police and terrific parks. We live in one of Kentucky's 3 safest cities. This is due in large part to our superb police officers under the leadership of Jeff Sherrard and Tony Denham. This year, the city invested in 4 flock cameras. Elsewhere, the cameras have proved to be an effective tool in combating crime, and we believe that they will help us to keep our city safe. In the coming weeks, I will propose a budget for the next fiscal year that would, if adopted, increase compensation for our police officers. In the past year, we have lost 2 officers to nearby departments at which the officers make more money. And accordingly, we have 2 vacancies on our police force. Chief Sherrard advises that the boost in pay will help us retain our current officers and recruit new officers. In addition to our police, a second significant factor that contributes to our success is our parks. Prospect's Parks Committee, led by Linda Wardell, has done and is doing an outstanding job. Our Public Works Director, Ron Cundiff, and his team work hard to support Linda and her committee. Recently, the Parks and Recreation Administrator of Louisville Metro Parks contacted Ron to ask if Louisville could transplant some of the river cane that grows in Harrods Creek Park to Louisville's Chickasaw Park. When Ron asked me about that and assured me that we could spare the cane that we would be donating, I agreed immediately to the request. Then I asked Ron, how would the Metro Parks Administrator know that we have river cane in our park? Ron replied that she is a regular visitor to Harrods Creek Park, where she enjoys hiking on the trails. Wow, I thought, what a compliment that a leader of Louisville's Parks Department enjoys visiting one of Prospect's parks. Under the leadership of Mayor John Evans, Prospect made substantial improvements to Little Hunting Creek Park, including construction of a new pavilion that the council named for Mayor Evans. Charlotte's Playground, named for the daughter of former council member Sarah Odell, new sidewalks, and increased parking. The playground attracts numerous children, parents, and grandparents, even on most days in January and February. And the pavilion hosts concerts, Shakespeare in the Park, and events that demonstrate our appreciation for our police and veterans. Because of the efforts of our Parks Committee and the support of the council, we are moving forward with construction of a stream crossing bridge in Harrods Creek Park. We are also planning a boardwalk in Little Hunting Creek Park. The boardwalk will extend from the back of City Hall to Putney Pond and will allow our citizens and visitors to walk through a beautiful, unspoiled, natural area that extends from Fox Harbor Road to Timber Ridge Drive. Councilman Don Gibson leads this effort, and the Kentucky Department of Transportation has taken an interest. I'm optimistic that the boardwalk will be completed in the relatively near future, and we will add another jewel to the crown of Prospect's parks. Our Forestation Board is a natural ally of our parks. I'm pleased to report that the National Arbor Day Foundation recognized Prospect for the 16th time as a Tree City USA. And the Kentucky Division of Forestry has for the 7th year named Prospect a growth city. I extend congratulations and thanks to Lee Tucci and the members of our Forestation Board. Because of the work of a dedicated group of volunteers, the city has a superb library. The library is on the 2nd floor of City Hall, and it offers an excellent selection of the latest bestsellers and other books of interest. I extend my thanks to the library volunteers for their significant contribution to Prospect. I've been pleased by the success of art in City Hall Prospect. The artwork on display in this room and in the Todd Epperly Conference Room has brought color, life, and a sense of fun to City Hall. Because I work in this building, I can say that the artwork brightens my day and gives me the opportunity to make new friends from the visitors who stop by. The exhibition opened on Sunday, January 14, when more than 125 people came to City Hall to enjoy the art and to visit with their neighbors and artists. I appreciate the efforts of Kathy Sauer and her committee, and I look forward to their future exhibitions. On Sunday, March 10 at 2 p.m., Professor John Begley from the University of Louisville Allen Height Art Institute will give a lecture in the council room about the art that is on display and about the ways in which art helps a city build community. I have heard John lecture, and he always does a terrific job. I also want to recognize and thank our city clerk, John Carter. John essentially serves as a deputy mayor. His calm, steady hand helps the city function smoothly and makes my job easier. John and our two wonderful receptionists also offer support to our library volunteers. In closing, I want to thank the citizens of Prospect for giving me the opportunity to serve as Prospect's mayor. Following my election, the mayor of a nearby city texted congratulations and noted that one of the great things about being mayor is making so many new friends. That has certainly proved to be the case for me. In the version of these remarks that will appear in the newsletter, I encourage our citizens to call, email, or text me about matters of interest to them. I also invite members of the council to stay in touch with me regarding the city's business and regarding our shared vision for Prospect. So thank you. It is an honor, indeed an honor to be Prospect's mayor. The next item on the agenda is our financial reports. John?
Well, I'm summarizing the financials provided to you, I believe, the day after the packet went out for ending January 31st. Cash on hand at the end of January was 2.9 million. And our revenue at the end of January was also 2.9 million. And we had expenditures, annual expenditures of just over 1 million at that time. The restricted road fund now amounts to $202,000 and change. And, if you have, there's one budget item that I discovered, and maybe you all saw the same thing. The police capital line is over budget, and that's related to a police cruiser that was wrecked, and then the insurance didn't quite cover the entire balance. So it's out of whack by about $6,000. We'll be reviewing that and creating an amended budget probably next month. And if you got any questions, I'll take them.
Any questions for John? Okay, with that, we'll ask our auditors, Bill Meyer and Jennifer French from the Strothman Company, to talk with us about our audit. Podium, please.
Good evening. I'm Bill Meyer. I am the partner responsible for your audit. I would say I was with Strothman & Company, but our firm merged with a Tennessee firm a few months ago, actually the largest firm in Tennessee. But all of the work that was in process, all the audits that were in process before that are being issued under the name of Strothman & Company. So Strothman & Company is still a legal CPA firm, but we're going to be part of LBMC going forward. I think you got the financial report hopefully ahead of time in PDF. I'll take questions in a minute. I'll just make a few comments and then allow time to take questions. So the audit went well. We got everything we needed from John and the mayor and got all our questions answered. We got all the documentation we needed. You probably know this, but the financial report, the format is ridiculously long, but that's not anyone's fault except the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. Everything in your financial report is required by the accounting standards. One of the things that the Standards Board about 15 years ago did in their wisdom was they decided that governmental financial statements should be presented, the same information basically should be presented two different ways. So the what's called the governmental funds, what you budget off of, those types of funds have been around 50 plus years. The government-wide financial statements are more on the accrual basis, and the main difference there is that the pension liability, or your share of the state's pension liability, is reflected on those financial statements as well. That's about $1.5 million, as well as about $500,000 related to other post-employment benefits. So that's not unique to Prospect. Metro Louisville, every city, every governmental entity in the state of Kentucky has a similar liability based on the number of employees that they have. So, basically you were, your general fund revenues last year were almost 3.5 million. You expended about 4.2 million. So you had a decrease in fund balance, but that was expected. That was about 723,000, but you had budgeted about a $900,000 decrease. So again, everything went fine. The audit's been issued and available to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions for Bill?
I tell people I take the easy questions. Jennifer will take the hard questions. So
Sorry, I would be suggesting that we are adding up cash base.
yeah, so it's very common for smaller organizations of any type, governmental or not, nonprofit, for profit, to keep their books on the cash basis. And you have an outside accounting firm that helps you do the books, and they keep it on the cash basis, which is what I think you had hired them to do. But the accrual basis, or what's called the modified accrual basis, even for fund accounting, is the generally accepted accounting principle. So our suggestion there would be that you work with your outside accounting firm and see if you could adopt that. I don't think it would really be that hard. There's really only about 3 or 4 things they'd have to do differently, and we'd be glad to help.
Any idea, any other cities have the corporation versus cash?
Well, so most of them do the accrual basis. You know, our biggest client is Metro Louisville, and they obviously have the accrual basis. But I mean, it's fine to do it the way you do it. It's just you know, we always want our clients to get better and closer to what, you know, other cities are doing. And it's not the end of the world. We come in and help, you know, make the adjustments at year end and get it on the accrual basis. But you have a qualified accounting firm helping with your books, and they certainly could do that too.
Any other questions for Bill or for Jennifer? Well, thank you so much, Bill.
Yeah, thank you for allowing us to serve you.
We appreciate all your efforts and appreciate you being here this evening.
I haven't been to the park you mentioned, but I love going across the bridge. That's fun.
All right, we turn to commission and board reports, the Ethics Commission. John?
Thanks, Mayor. I can almost skip this. We're down to just 2 people who have not turned in their ethics forms. So everybody on the city council that I'm looking at has done a very good job. And well, the city council in general has come in completely. March 1st is the deadline for those who might be interested. And after that, the commission will have to get together and decide what to do about it. But that's all. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Stay in touch with me. I'll help twist arms. We'll get the last 2 forms in for you. All right. Okay, thank you, John. Any questions for John on the ethics? Okay. Forestation Board, Lee?
The board met on February 8th, and we had as one of our participants, the urban forester from Kentucky, John Jack Baggett, B-A-G-G-E-T-T. He's the urban forester. And going back to the very founding of the Forestation Board, we've gotten a lot of help from Kentucky Division of Forestry. Some of you who've been around a long time will remember that there were 2 foresters from the state that worked with us in our initial survey of all the trees along streets in Prospect, every one. And they also helped train the volunteers. At that time, we had about 30 volunteers. They helped train them, tell them what equipment they should have, et cetera, et cetera. So, and we've had someone from urban forestry at some of our arbor fests also. So that was really nice. And Mr. Baggett has a lot of experience in forestry. He's I would say, middle-aged person, and he's worked in forestry for many years. And as Mayor mentioned, he confirmed that Prospect was named as a tree city again, and we got a growth award because of our canopy tree program. And when we're on that, we've been using the e-blast to advertise the canopy tree program, the new one, which is in progress right now. We have about 6 orders of canopy trees. 2 of these orders are coming from people who got canopy trees in our previous 2 offerings. So they see it as a valuable thing, a way to add trees to their property with some help from the city. Other things going on, the League of Cities tree that was donated by Ecotech, which is a dogwood, has been planted in the landings area, the entrance area of the landings. And we also discussed location for memorial tree for Linda Worldell's mother. This has been talked about quite a bit of time. Actually, park committee members volunteered, paid money for that tree and for the plaque. It's just a question of location. It'll be a flowering tree. And we got a new request for a memorial tree to go into Harris Creek Park. And just going back, creation of the memorial tree program was something which we got to grow toward some years back. And there's a continuing interest in these memorial trees. And we also discussed hazardous trees. There's one on Newburgh Court. There's a couple along Sutherland Farm Road, at least one of which was actually owned by the city, along Gunston Lane and around 42. If you drive up along 42 in this direction, you can see the remains of a limb that fell off a hazardous tree that had actually been identified as hazardous by Andrea Hanlon, our consulting arborist, and she says that tree is still hazardous and needs some more remedial action. We notice also we have not heard back from Chase Bank about recommendations that Herb and Andrea made regarding what might be cut from the trees, existing trees there at the Kroger Village, and the type of trees that might be planted. I sent them a note and haven't heard back again, so sometime in the next week or 2, have to bug them. And we also talked a little bit about a proposed ordinance change that would require developers to submit tree removal and tree planting plans prior to getting building permits. And I think that's a great idea. It will definitely improve the tree canopy in Prospect on a long-term basis. Pretty much end the report. Any questions?
Any questions for Lee? Lee, thanks for all your efforts, and the other members of the board, please express our appreciation. Our investment committee chair, Susan Nicholson, is here with a report.
Well, good evening.
And there's a written report in the council's packets.
Just a little background. I think this is the first report from the investment committee. It was established in 2023, had its first meeting on June 20th of 23, and most recently met in January of 2024. The need for such a committee was established when the mayor recognized some opportunity to put some of the city's cash reserves to work in something other than CDs at a local bank. So the members that are serving on this committee have a wide variety of skills and experience. It's myself, Bill Brab, Dennis Riggs, Don Gibson, and then we receive support from John Carter, the mayor, and Chris Gorman sits in on our meetings. So far, what we've done is, you may recall that you adopted an investment policy statement last January. And as the committee started, they reviewed the investment policy statement to make sure they understood it. And it was adopted from one recommended by the Kentucky League of Cities. They had basically a boilerplate policy. And we really found it very difficult to understand and kind of confusing in some cases. So we reviewed it and had questions and made some suggestions and sent it back on to the KLC. And we recently heard from them that they're making changes to their boilerplate policy. And we'll be discussing those changes at our April meeting and anticipate adopting it and then sending it on to this group for adoption. We also evaluated some of the investment pools that are offered by the Kentucky League of Cities as an alternative to the CDs and savings accounts that are offered by the banks. And to better understand the availability of those pools, we met with the Kentucky League of Cities Financial Services Manager and two representatives of PNC. PNC is the entity that actually does the investing. And we began implementing a strategy whereby the cash reserves of about $3,750,000 have been invested in one of two pools. One is a money market pool, and the other is an enhanced income fund through the program. And both are, at the time we got into them, were just earning just over 5%. And then at the last meeting, we discussed starting to dip our toe a little bit into actually getting into the stock market with some funds that we know won't be needed for years and years and years. So we started doing what's called dollar cost averaging and taking about 30% of the earnings that these other funds have generated, about $5,000 a month, and that's being put into an S&P 500 fund that then will give us some small exposure to the equity market. And then as recognized in your annual report that was included in the council packet, earnings as of 12/31/23 have been almost $127,000, $126,736. Next steps for the committee is we'll be meeting quarterly in April, July, October, and January, unless there's an additional need. And what we'll be doing is reviewing investment returns, considering reallocations, and then other opportunities. And what we do is make those recommendations to the designated officials that the investment policy statement has named as John and the mayor. And ultimately, though, this council is responsible for any final investments. So welcome any questions.
Thank you, Susan. Any questions for Susan?
What's the as of date on this?
On that one, I believe that report was,
That's for the calendar. It's,
For the calendar year?
yeah, that was the calendar year.
but the rates are as of. It says that.
They fluctuate month to month, at
Yes.
least in the KLC pool. So I put down what the initial investment value was. So those go back to July.
Can you share what's in the S&P fund in dollars right now?
Right now, probably $5,000.
plus interest.
Okay.
And just as an aside, we're limited by Kentucky statute that's part of our investment policy statement. There's a limitation there, I believe, no more than 40% of our overall investments can be in that, but this committee has no intention of going that high.
Thank you.
I have a question. Susan, you said that these decisions about what to do start with your group
Mhm.
and then are transmitted to Mayor Farnsley and John Carter,
Mhm.
and they decide based on what you recommend and so forth. And then you said, and the ultimate responsibility lies with the city council. How does that work?
Well, I'll refer to the,
City council is a decision. How does it get to be responsible for it?
because the city council has appointed the designated officials, being the mayor and John.
Well, maybe that was a mistake.
Is that in the investment?
No further questions.
That's in the investment policy statement, yeah.
It's a good question. And I think we're sort of, I don't want to say feeling our way, but we're learning as we go.
Mhm.
And our plan is to keep the council very closely.
That scares me.
Well, we're trying to be really, really careful.
Oh, glad to hear
And we're going to keep you closely
it,
about it.
especially since I'm responsible.
That's right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Susan. Appreciate it. Yeah, the first suggestion from the investment committee was to put 2 toes into the equity market. And I said, no, we're going to do 1 toe. So we're being pretty conservative. Okay, other reports, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. Sally, I think you're going to make that report this evening.
Sally Schneider filling in for Linda today. First thing is to talk about the Birds Creek Stream Crossing Bridge project. That project is advancing according to plan, and Bornstein Construction is working on the final design plans for the bridge. And then I'd like to just update on some of the recent events that we've had. On January 27th, we had a children's project in the library. We had 9 children that made bird feeders. And then we had several children that had not attended some of our craft events before. And then a lot of the children hung around afterwards and kind of read to each other in the library, and the moms got to know each other. And then following that, we had our first lecture series, our first event in the lecture series with Jacob Kreider, who has been coming here from Creasy Mahan. Jacob is an educator and naturalist, and his first lecture was about geology in Kentucky and was very well received. We had about 22 people in attendance. Jacob is coming back this Saturday for our second lecture, and that is about amphibians and the importance of them in Kentucky. And he is bringing some live animals with him. That'll take place at 1 o'clock on Saturday, and hope that you all will come and check it out. He's very interesting and he gives great lectures. The next, we have also the John Evans Pavilion Program Concert Series. The planning for that is underway. The Shakespeare in the Park event, A Midsummer Night's Dream, will return on April 28th. And then David Holmes is chairing that concert committee. And we are finalizing the rest of the concerts for that series. I don't know if you want to mention any of them, David. It's okay. And then we have the mayor wanted to have a event this year for the kids. So we're doing a Kids Fest, and we've just finalized the date for June 22nd. It'll be from 10 to 12. We will have it over here at the John Evans Pavilion. And it's going to be like the main event's going to be kids from the Louisville Leopards, percussionists that are going to be playing, but we're only going to have a group of 7 of them because we don't have room for the full 68. And then, yeah, that would be a lot. And then we are happy to announce that the Harrods Creek Trail Bash will be returning this year. There will be a 5K and a 10K trail run, and that will take place on Sunday, November 17th. And additionally, since we sent our report out, Jacob Kreider is also a member of the Audubon Society, and he has just agreed to do 2 bird walks for us this spring. So we'll have one in April, probably at Putney's Pond, and then we'll do one in May at Harrods Creek Park. Any questions?
Thanks, Sally.
All right.
I'll mention, I was here for Jacob's lecture on geology. I thought, boy, I'm not a big geologist, but it was terrific. And I've also heard him lecture on birds. So he does a terrific job. They're very entertaining, very engaging. So thank you for all the work that you're doing, and Linda, everybody's doing on the committee. Next on the agenda is the Council Committee for Reviewing and Reconciling versions of Ordinance 633, Forestation Ordinance. So that's Frank's and Sarah's and David's committees. You all have a report.
We're going to, as I understand it, there's some drafts that the Forestation Board and Frank and some help have been coming up with, and that Sarah and Frank and I will hold another meeting probably sometime next week where we go over what they're recommending for us. There's still some gaps that need to be filled. Is that right, Frank?
Yeah, I just talked to Lee about getting together this next week, and I think Chris, I'd like to get together with you with this draft, because I think, you and I are concerned, David, about legal issues, and they
Be glad to.
like to put them to rest. I think that's the last hurdle. Outside of all the wordsmith, once we're agreed in principle, and I think we're pretty close. That's the only outstanding thing I'm aware of.
Any questions for Frank or David? Thanks for your work. Thanks also to Sarah. Jefferson County League of Cities, Don Gibson.
Since our last meeting with each Jefferson County League of Cities, First one was on Saturday, January 27th. Thanks. One was a presentation by Jessica Matters of Kentucky League of Cities on the quick-pay system. And it's fundamentally a system that website that kind of brings our systems up from 1980 processes to current processes and interaction with the internet. Talk into the microphone. Yes, sir. John's aware of that and is looking at it, and so we'll see if that has any application for the prospect. The next thing, the mayor, the president of the Jefferson County League of Cities invited Nicole George to come and speak to speak to the members on if there's any interaction possibly between our public works and medical public. And I have to hand it to on January, but that was a Saturday morning. It was in 36 and Dwayne, it was a cold Saturday morning. They all came up and talked to us. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of interface opportunity. Public works has limitations, for instance, potholes. We were hoping potholes would be something that they could have the suburban cities with, but I guess their contract with their union forbids that, so they can't. Or they could have this recommendations on vendors and most of us have been pretty well covered. There was a discussion about disaster planning. The lady in charge of that, Metro Local has about a 3.6 million threshold in any disaster. And if you get anything above that, they will get a 75% return. It doesn't include any residential, it doesn't include commercial salt cities. So the word there was interested in make sure that we have our process together so we can quickly report any losses. March 7th was the last one, and it just started looking short. Finally, we talked about budgets and the process for budget. We won't get to Jefferson County. We won't get our tax information from the Jefferson County property evaluation until April 23rd. That will give us a sense of what it's going to be. We need two public ratings, an ordinance, two public ratings, and after we approve it, then the budget is published in the administration, and it goes to get that done. Talk about the audit process. Every by law, every city in the state has to have an audit completed by March 1st of the following year, and it was an interesting discussion in that auditors, CPA, don't really like to do that. And they would raise prices. There were a couple of CPA firms there, and one of the mayors of smallest, what kind of cost was it? About $5,000. My entire budget's $30 million. And it's about the only option for him is to use state public auditor to get his own done. Couple other meetings deciding who was going to run for the board, and then there was an election. Which was a good event. The next mayor of the Kentucky League of Cities came and spoke to us. Mayor Mike Hughes of Auburn, Kentucky. Auburn, Kentucky is about 15-20 miles west of Bowling Green between Russellville. But he stood up and gave a great speech. And Mayor Farnsworth, if you can help me here, but one of the things he was talking about was cities. He said cities in the state of Kentucky occupy about 6% of the land mass, and it controls 98% of the economic activity. And that process
That's yeah. Overwhelming amount of the economic activity came from the cities.
And that's only other thing. There's going to be another training session on Jefferson County League of Cities, and the next one is on revenue estimates in March. And I guess I'm next on the agenda with the Putney Fund. Yeah, just a little background on Putney Fund. The boardwalk, that concept's been around a couple of years. April 2022, Ben Bear, John Evans, all the meeting together with Mayor Barnes, Linda Markham, myself, you, Herb, and David Wicks. And he said, I'd like to see this concept go to a plan. And the first step in that process is this wonderful winners we have behind us is conservation easement. And we can't do anything in there without the approval of the Kentucky Heritage Land Conservation. And so the first step was to make an application. And Linda Ward did a heck of a job within 30 days. She put a 50-page report together and sent it off to them. And in May, we had to get it done by May, which we did that. In August of 22, they said, well, we'll give you tentative approval, but we want to know more about the site. We sent some information about the site. In December, they came back and said, no, we need more. We want to know more about the construction and materials. And at that point, we signed a $7,500 contract with Steve Emily and Boyd Jim, Design Engineering. They put together another plan. We sent that off in April 2023. We finally got it and basically from City Hall to the land connected to entities. The cost on that was about 1.3 million. That gave us a little pause. In the meantime, other things came up. In October 2023, Doug and I attended a KIPTA meeting where Alicia Hartman gave us a presentation. She's in charge of community and economic development, and they had a presentation on grants. And so we set up a meeting in December. There's a lot of grant out there. And basically, we set up a funding collector, fund the boardwalk with them. We have another meeting coming up February 29th. We'll finish up the details on the plan. Then another meeting with Alicia in March. Questions?
Is that a matching grant?
It's several of them out there. One is a transportation grant. It's 81. Yeah, that would be a nice grant if we could get. Others are about the same ratio.
Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Thanks for all your work on JCLC and the boardwalk project. All right, police report. Chief?
Okay. Excuse me, January was very slow, very few reports of any significance, which is a great thing. The house checks were way up. People are continuing to leave town. I don't know whether that's good or bad, but we did 3,300 house checks in the month of January, 3,300. So if you continue that over the course of the year, we would just totally shatter the record for the year. I think we did 31,000 in 1 year. So we're looking at clearing that one in street shoes. So the only regular report for January that had any significance at all was a theft of jewelry from a house. It wasn't a burglary. Somebody just took some jewelry, and quite honestly, they suspected a family member of it. So that's still ongoing. There was a few domestics, but none of which had any violence associated with them. That's where we took a report. It's called a duties only report. It's just that there was arguments and things like that. But because of state law, you're required to file a report on that as a part of your regular duties. But there were no injuries. no violence. It was strictly verbal in both cases. So there was no arrest involved, anything like that. And that was the end of those. So pretty calm. Now, on to stuff that's already happened in February. And I'm sure it's gone around to others. We've had 2 significant burglaries that occurred already in Prospect. They occurred on the evening of February 9th, early in the evening. It is a part of a burglary ring that has hit very nice homes in the East End. High-end homes have been targeted. Not only, we had the 2 houses here, but there were homes that were hit over in Anchorage, nice homes along River Road, further up toward Indian Hills and a few others. There was a total, from what we gather from talking to other departments that are involved, a total of 8 to 10 homes were hit in the 3-day period. We have reason to believe that this is a part of, I guess they're called, it's a South American theft gang. It's a national thing. It's a group of people that operate together. They go into a home. They're there very briefly, 5 minutes and less. They target high-end items. They're in and out of the house. They're gone. They don't want any part of a house that's occupied. So they're not going to break into a house in the middle of the night because the chances of hitting somebody, they don't want any part of that. Not to get too specific, but they don't like traceable items. So they're not going to come in. They're not going to grab your wallets, your purses that are going to have credit cards in there, your IDs and stuff. All that stuff's traceable. They're not going to take your computers. It's all traceable. This is all just high-end stuff. And they're not going to break in my house because all I got is a cat. This $25 baby is not going to a pocket. But there are other items that are of high value. That's what's targeted. Again, in and out, stuff that they can carry by hand, and then they're gone. And these have happened all across the country. You can actually see stuff, and that's who we suspect at this point. And Sergeant McKeon's already worked with Metro. He was in a meeting yesterday that lasted a couple hours where they had discussions with that. So my suggestion is if you have alarm on your house and you're leaving for the evening just to go to dinner, turn it on. Turn it on. If you have a safe in your home, put your stuff in it. You know, if you have a nice watch, things like that, put it in the safe. Because that stuff's, you can't put that in a backpack and walk out with it and say, so lock it up. So that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for the chief? Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. All right. I will turn to new business. There are 3 items of new business. The first is an ordinance relating to the taxation. And I'll let John, if you would explain what that is.
Briefly, we don't receive the tax roll generally, the certified final tax roll from the PVA until mid-August. And it's very close to what the ordinance says is the date that we're to mail our bills. By changing the date from August 20th to 31st, just gives us a bit more time in case to both review it for potential errors and to just get the mailer together. Still gives all the taxpayers a full 30 days to make the payment. I'm not sure why August 20th was picked whenever the ordinance was written, but I recommend we change it to the 31st.
And when do you get the information from PVA?
It's usually like in that same week.
Yeah.
So it gives me maybe 6 or 7 days.
So this extends the time for you to digest that information and do what you need to do. So this is on this evening for a first reading. Is there a motion that we give the ordinance this is ordinance number 633, series 2024. Is there a motion to give that ordinance a first reading?
So moved. Second.
Is there discussion? Not, we'll,
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
John, we're reviewed every 3 years, aren't we, from the PBA?
Now I'm talking about the annual roll that we receive, like we get the preliminary roll in April, as somebody
The
mentioned.
role is the list of,
Yeah, the tax amounts, the assessments, the bills themselves. So the PPA actually prints the bills for us.
okay, yeah. Thank you.
any other questions or any further discussion? If not, we're ready for a vote. Start with you, John Gibson. John Evans.
Yes.
David Holmes.
Yes.
John Clark.
Yes.
Frank Wilczek.
Yes.
And then Frank, did you make the motion?
Yes.
Would you read the title of the ordinance for us?
City of Prospect ordinance number 633, series 2024. An ordinance relating to the amendment and modification of chapter 37, taxation of the code of ordinances of the city of Prospect.
And the upshot of this is that the ordinance changes the date each year that the clerk prepares and mails the tax bill. Is that right, John?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. Next item, business. Another ordinance that's before you for a first reading. And John, I'll ask you if you would to explain this. This is ordinance 634, series 2024.
Well, you may recall, I mentioned at January's meeting that it was on the 8th, it's very early, and so there wasn't much to put on the agenda on the 8th. This sort of just changes the ordinance so that it follows more of a regular pattern, that if a federal holiday is on a Monday, we would push the meeting to the next Tuesday. So an example, MLK would now be on the Tuesday following it rather than the week prior. And that may potentially affect like Juneteenth at some point too.
Okay, so moved.
So John, the only exception that is
The December,
the December one.
keeping that
All
way.
the rest of them will be consistent.
That's correct.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
All right, is there,
I'll second.
okay, Frank made the motion, John seconded. Is there further discussion or any further questions? So the motion is for first reading for the ordinance relating to the modification of the date for council meetings following national holiday that occurs on a Monday. So I'll start the roll call. Frank, with you.
Yes.
John,
Yes.
David.
Yes.
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 It's, and Frank made the motion. Frank, if you give that reading, please.
City of Prospect ordinance number 634, series 2024. An ordinance relating to the amendment and modification of chapter 32, City Council Rules of Procedure of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Prospect.
And this ordinance essentially changes the date for the meeting that would normally occur on Martin Luther King Day. And instead of meeting a week earlier, we'll meet on the Tuesday, the day after Martin Luther King. That's most holidays. Okay, thanks for that. So then the third item of new business is first reading of an ordinance relating to building regulations. It's also got a forestation component. And David, I think you're the author, so.
This deals with the Chase, came to our attention through the Chase Bank situation with the Kroger area where we understand that they were going to take a number of the trees down. And we recognize that we didn't have anything in place to require the applicant for their building permit to give us a plan saying we'll replace them in some kind of way. Now, we recognize that we're not going to be in a position to require people to replace old existing big trees, but to keep us with a tree canopy tree city, we need to at least put something back into the system. So what this does is recognizes that we don't have anything, but to require when people are going for a building permit when they're removing existing live trees. So it has to be, it's not a dead tree. We don't, if they take that out when they're doing construction, we understand that. And actually probably appreciate that. But this requires when they are going to have to remove existing live trees, that the city requires that as part of the permitting process, they consult with the forestation board. And the forestation board comes up with a plan determining the type of tree, the size, the location, and the number of replacement trees that we think are appropriate, or the forestation board thinks is appropriate for the prospective permit to replace. We also have down here that the location of the replacement trees has to be within the city of Prospect. And the reason we put that in was we recognize that it may not be possible when you do new construction to replace the exact same number of trees that go out. We know we're not going to get the same size, but we could request that they provide us with the trees, and then the city could put the trees somewhere else, so that we're continuing to try to keep our canopy in effect in some kind of way. So basically, this is a method of trying to plug a existing gap that we foresee in our ordinances, giving the forestation board the authority, which they don't really have now, to go and do this. They're the committee that has the expertise to be able to do this for us. And personally think this is a wise move on the city's behalf to try to plug a loophole that we've got in our system. And I recommend that we make this modification for our code of ordinance building
Okay, is there
regulations.
is there a motion to give a first reading to this proposed ordinance?
So move.
David Holmes has made that motion. Is there a second? And is there further discussion, or is there discussion?
I'd like to say something. David and I have, we've worked hard on this thing. My point is that I think it's premature. I think it overlaps to some degree with what we're trying to accomplish with the forestation ordinance. I think it's, at one point, we felt it was necessary because of the Chase situation, but I think that ship has sailed. If I'm not, isn't that correct, Chris?
Yes.
I mean, this wouldn't apply to Chase. So.
Well, let me ask Chris that. Have they gotten a building permit yet? No.
Well, and my understanding, I don't want to jump in too much here, but my understanding is that Chase is, I think, agreeable to replacing trees.
Well, but they haven't gotten back to Lee, and Lee
right.
in his report said that they haven't done it. This gives us a little bit more clout, so Lee can say,
Sure.
you're not going to get your building permit if you don't come to me and talk to me and us come up with an agreement. I'm trying to give us a little bit of, look, they haven't done a building permit yet. We put this into effect when they apply. for the
What
building
have we
permit.
approved?
What?
Yeah, what
We
have
haven't
we?
approved
We haven't
anything.
approved anything.
We haven't approved anything.
Okay.
And they brought it and then took it away and said, we'll come back later, is what they did with.
Okay, we haven't approved it.
No, we haven't approved it.
But I also think that this, that the forestation board needs the council to get out of the way. I think this is not flexible enough for them to negotiate with somebody. I mean, it may not be reasonable to take down 2 trees and then tell them to put it back up. I think that puts the council in the position of being forestation.
So Frank and I've had this discussion, and I don't disagree with him that when we present the entire modification of the forestry board authority, this may in some way need to be changed, or it may be redundant or unnecessary. But right now, we don't have that. When that gets presented to the council and whether the council approves it is up in the air. Lee has already said he's tried to get up with Chase Bank and Chase Bank has given him nothing back. This will require Chase Bank to get back with Forestry Board. If later we make changes and this becomes unnecessary, so be it. We can remove it from the books. But right now, I think we need a club.
I attended the last forestation board meeting, and this topic came up, Lee, if I recall correctly. And the forestation board supports this proposed ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, then this is a good discussion. The motion or not, I don't know, have we got a motion?
Yeah,
We have a motion.
and a second.
Okay, so the issue for discussion is a first reading of this proposed ordinance. We've had a good discussion thus far. Are there any further comments? Any questions? If not, are we ready to vote? So I'll start with you, Don.
Yes.
John Evans
Yes.
and David Holmes.
Yes.
John Clark.
Yes.
Frank Fulcher.
I'll pass.
So the vote is 4-1, and there's first reading. David, would you read the title?
City of Prospect Ordinance Number 635, Series 2024. An ordinance relating to the amendment and modification of Chapter 150 Building Regulations of the Code of Ordinance, City of Prospect.
The gravamen of this ordinance is that if a developer removes a tree, they replace it in consultation with the forestation board at that location or another location in the city.
Yes, sir.
But I think it's further than that. If they remove 2 trees, they have to replace 2 trees.
Correct.
3.
You're getting
Correct. Okay, that's a good discussion, and those first readings have occurred. We'll consider them for possible adoption at the next meeting. If there's no further business, if there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.